Yeah. Surprise, a little different than you're used to. Yeah. Dropping these bars on YouTube, knowledge I introduce you. Yeah. We chasing this money like it's the prize, it's the voodoo. Fugazi, fugazi, it's just a lie we buying into. We need some cars on deck. Get the rollies, get the Moe, all the Mars on deck. All right, what's going on, everyone? Thanks so much for joining me. This is kind of like an impromptu. I wouldn't say impromptu. I'm a little jet lagged right now. I did a live earlier this week in Dubai. I literally got back from Dubai today, and I've not slept. But I wanted to do a live just to kind of interact and kind of get some contact with you guys. So this is going to be a finance clinic. If you do have questions, this is the opportunity for you to pop them in the comment section, and I will try and get round to each of those questions with an answer. And when I do this kind of stuff, it's all about trying to give you practical tips. So anything you want to ask about, I'm sure people will be asking me about the markets and so on and so forth. I've already got a couple of questions in the comment section already waiting around markets specifically. But I just want to say welcome. Thank you for joining me. As always, just before I start this, I have two big favors to ask of you. You know what the first one is. Well, make sure that you smash the like button. It takes about a second or so for you to do that, but it does mean that the YouTube algorithm will push it to other people who may need to perhaps see this, hear this, and may get benefit from this after this live is said and done. And also, if you are not yet subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. We are starting to see the subscriber number actually build quite nicely. And that's always a big thing to see, and it's encouraging, particularly because content creation is actually pretty hard. But yeah, we are going to dedicate some time this evening to questions. I apologize off the bat. Like I said, I'm a little jet lagged, so I'm pretty knackered right now. And my plan is to do this, get an early night. I've literally been up since my pickup this morning was at 4:10 Dubai time, and they're 3 hours ahead. So I've had literally no sleep. So jet lag is real right now. So yeah, let's get to it. Put some time on the clock here. And see what everyone is basically saying. Someone has asked me, and you asked, oh, can I put this on here? Yes, I can actually. Let's have a look at this first one. This is from Mar. What are my thoughts on Moneyfarm? So Moneyfarm actually sponsored the channel last year, I believe it was. Good company. They are very, very different to the likes of Moneybox, to the likes of Wealthify, purely because they have the ability for you to be able to pick up the phone and actually speak to one of their investment experts. So if you are going to be using them and you wanted to ask questions about what's going on in the markets or how they're looking after your portfolio, if you had questions, you could literally book an appointment in app with them. I really, really like them for that function. I had money with them for quite some time as well. They did really, really well, particularly when the markets were kind of trailing off. They were constantly doing updates. So their approach is an actively managed approach. It's not a passive approach. And so if you are thinking about using them, you probably want to consider the impact of that active management versus passive management. And when I say that, not just in terms of the performance, but also in the fees that you'll pay. And that's probably the only, I wouldn't say downside, but one of the key things to consider when you're looking at someone like Moneyfarm is that they are a little bit more expensive than the likes of, the Vanguards of this world, where it is passive investment. So understanding the difference between the two is really, really key, really important. But Moneyfarm, I love the team. They're great. They're awesome. Like I said, I used them for probably about a year and a bit. Before I started to streamline down all of my investment options, because I literally had at one point I had like 12 providers I was using because I was reviewing so many apps or so during that period of time. So Moneyfarm are great. Just be mindful. Active management, it's going to cost you a little bit more to use them, but you can you can literally book an appointment with a member of their team if you ever had any questions on your investment with them, and you wanted to understand what they're doing. And they're very, very good at communicating as well. You get like at least I got an email every time they rebalance the portfolio, because they might have thought, well, actually, you know what, America's not doing too great, let's reshift, or China's not doing too great, or Europe's not doing too great, can we shift? They're very, very good at communicating that as well. So yeah, really, really good ones. Thanks for this, Mark. Good work. Great channel. Thank you very, very much. I try to be as helpful as possible here. So, welcome to the fold. Um, Food dweller. How am I, mate? I'm good, but I'm knackered. If I'm honest, I'm really, really tired. I'm gonna get a really good night's sleep tonight, and then next week is I'm chock a block next week. So just rolling with the punches, but I'm good, mate. It was nice to be out in Dubai for a little bit of work, but unfortunately, I mean, people said to me that it gets hot out there. I mean, we were doing day before yesterday, I think it was like 40, 41, and that doesn't sound too bad, but when you go out, it could be. I literally remember going out. I think it was on Wednesday this week. I had a meeting and I had to walk from the car to the place where the meeting was, and it was blowing. It was breezy, but it felt like someone had an air dryer on you, like on full blast heat. It was just very, very uncomfortable, and it makes sense why people say that people don't go out in Dubai in this kind of heat. It was something to experience that this past week, but it was a really, really good week, and yeah, I'm a little pumped, but a little tired right now as I speak. Um, and not a problem at all. Like I said, I wasn't intending to, it wasn't at the top of my mind as a priority to do this today, but I do understand that people will probably still be looking at their options when it comes to interest rates, all that kind of stuff. So I thought I'd make myself available for any questions that people do have, so that I can actually get to them and kind of give a little bit of my insights and maybe some practical tips, as I always try to here as well. Laura, welcome. How are you? Thank you so much for joining. All right. Okay. Cool. I don't know what's going on with my comments here. Oh no, there they are. There we go. Right. Let's get into some of these. Is cash king nowadays? It really depends on your circumstance. I mean, there will be a lot of people like the Grant Cardones of this world. To a certain extent, Rich Dad Poor Dad Robert Kiyosaki will tell you that cash is trash. I think you need cash for sure. I think running your finances without having the ability to access cash it's poor financial practice at the end of the day. So I think cash can be king, but it depends on your circumstances. I don't think it's good to hold too much cash. You want to be able to obviously allocate your money so that it's working hard for you, but that is dictated by your own personal circumstances, not by what social media is telling you. So if you're looking to buy a house right now, then if you've got cash, then yeah, actually, given the conversation we had with Charlie, what was it? It feels like it was a couple of weeks ago now, but I know it's not that long ago. He was talking about property prices potentially, falling by 35%. If you're a cash buyer right now, then yes, it is king. Particularly in a falling market where someone may be motivated to sell. So yeah, cash will be king. But I would always say that try and make sure that you get the balance right, because this is what it's all about. It is about balance. How much cash do you want to hold versus how much cash do you need to hold and should you hold? That can be a very, very tricky equation to try and run, but you will know what's right for you based on the amount that you have there. If you feel like maybe you need to allocate some money to something, obviously don't leave yourself short, because people oftentimes will underestimate how much of an emergency fund they need, and things like that, right? Ready cash available. So just be mindful of those factors as well. But it is very much down to personal preference. If you have cash right now, and markets, I mean, the US market aren't doing too bad, really, to be honest. Is it a great time to invest right now? Potentially, yes. So cash will be king in that example as well. Let's have a look at this one. Is the buy to let lending criteria likely to get worse? Yes, I would imagine so. I mean, look, so what the lenders tend to do, and all of them do this, regardless of whether you're looking at a residential mortgage or a buy to let mortgage, you have things called affordability criteria. Now, on buy to let mortgages, it's slightly different because they're looking at your rental income and they're lending based on the rental income. But what you will find that some of the providers will do is they might now take a look at your personal finances to make sure that if you come under pressure with rent, like as most landlords are right now, they're renting out properties that aren't necessarily covering all of their bills, so they're renting at a loss. They may look at your personal circumstances, your personal finances, to ensure that you've got enough money in the background to be able to keep up with the payments for the buy to let mortgage beyond your rent. And I don't necessarily see that they would relax the rules on that anytime soon, given where we are with interest rates and the potential that even now, as we speak, interest rates could go up even further, all dependent on what happens with the next CPI inflation check-in. So it is likely that they'll tighten their criteria on buy-to-let mortgages even more, buy-to-let lending even more. But what I would say to you, Hardeep, is make sure you're speaking to a mortgage broker, a mortgage advisor, so that you're kind of aware of what changes when they change. Because oftentimes, if you are looking to, you know, pull the trigger on a purchase, if they're going to change the criteria, and they're going to do that, say, next week or so, you may not necessarily know they're going to do it next week. But if you already have an application in, sometimes those changes may not retrospectively impact you. So it's really important that you speak to a mortgage broker or a mortgage expert, just to make sure that you understand what the criteria is, and if it does change, how it's changed. There's a follow-up question here from you as well. Invest in pension or clear down the mortgage. That's a tough one to answer, mate. There are pros and cons to all of that. It really depends, again, on your personal circumstances here. Um, I would be looking at how much of an impact you're likely going to have from interest rate rises potentially. Do you have any pension provisions right now? Um, if you're working as an employee within the business, then you're going to have auto enrollment. So 8% of your qualifying income will be going towards a pension anyway. So you could already have provisions for your pension. The question is, do you salary sacrifice or pay more into the pension, particularly if you have an employer that matches? So, for example, they maybe only putting in 3%, you're putting in 5%, but some people will say if you go in 7, we'll match you at 7. So that's all of a sudden going from 8 to 14% a contribution. So there are a number of factors in there. Again, I think the most important thing is for you to have a really nice overarching view of your own landscape. So bearing in mind, we do have, interest rate rises, going up, um, and things have got more expensive, inflation. You need to have a look at it from your own personal finance perspective. Do you feel under pressure at the moment? And if you ask yourself, okay, would you sleep better at night paying off the mortgage or investing more into a pension? You need to listen to yourself there, because you can do both. 100% you could do both. I mean, you'll be paying down the mortgage less quickly, but you could do both. And many would argue, well, actually, you're invested into the market for the long term. And obviously, the earlier you start with pensions, the better. But if you feel like you want to sleep better at night knowing that your mortgage is paid off, or you're going to be paying off your mortgage a lot quicker, then that isn't something you can ignore. So that is definitely something worthwhile bearing in mind, and asking yourself, if you had both on the table right now, pension, paying off mortgage, do a pros and cons list and think about it from, how would you feel from a personal finance point of view? Which one would offer you the better peace of mind? Because they're two very, very different things. Which one will offer you better peace of mind, and decide from there. Where am I? Okay, so Food Dwell is asking it, is it good to cancel pension contributions at work and use that money to invest in the stock market? No, is the answer. Because if you cancel your contributions into your workplace pension, your employer then no longer has to pay in for you. So effectively, you're giving up free money by doing so. And then you're going to invest it in the same stock market that your pension is going to be invested in anyway. And I think this is really important, just in terms of distinctions for people to understand. A pension is an investment. So when you have a pension, that is an investment. So whatever you would go and invest in, if you took that money and invested it, I don't know, with Moneyfarm, Vanguard, your pension is going to be invested in pretty much the same kind of companies, right? So you're you're almost cutting off your nose to spite your face, because you're not only saying no to your employee contributions at 3% of your qualifying salary by saying no, and then taking that money and investing yourself, but mm, you're also foregoing some of the tax relief that you get for pensions as well. So for me, the answer would be no. It's not worth you canceling your pension contributions, then taking that money to invest in the stock market. That's what your pension is going to be doing. It's going to be investing in the stock market, but you're going to get tax relief. You're also going to get employee contributions as well. So that is a better position to be, in my opinion. All right, let's see where we are. Kelvin. How you doing, mate? Hey, Pete. In your opinion, what would your recommended way to hedge against a potential recession slash a bearish market? Okay, really good question there. Look, let me talk about this from a. There are different risks when you think about a recession. When you think about bearish markets, right? Because in a bear market, recession, you're looking at markets potentially faltering, withdrawing. You're going to see those highs come into lows. And I'm going to talk about this from a personal finance point of view, because that's the most important thing. Through my career, I've definitely seen people who have invested heavily into the stock market with no emergency fund, with no real control over their day to day finances, with a lot of debt behind them that they have to service. And when the markets go into a bear market, i.e., either a recession or just general correction, they find themselves in need of the money that they've invested in the first place to be able to continue to maintain just living costs, right? And so for me, the best way for you to hedge, in my opinion, is to make sure you've got a really, really good handle on your personal finances. So, when it comes to money in, money out, you got a tight budget. If you're carrying a lot of debt, or you have debt, how are you doing with those? Is there a way that you can perhaps restructure things, maybe not present balance transfers, for example, or consolidation? Those kind of things come into the fray, because what you should be trying to do is you should be trying to insulate your personal finances as much as possible, so you have as much efficiency in your personal finances as possible. You essentially want to eliminate any waste that you have, because in a bear market or a recession, there are lots of implications, and just knowing that you are going to be okay from your own personal financial planning point of view is what's going to give you the peace of mind that you need. And actually, I was speaking to a friend of mine about this literally the last week, just before I went to Dubai, and he's reevaluating, his car, because he's got that personal loan, whether he's going to sell that. He's got some equity in the car, maybe keep that back. That will be an emergency fund. Having an emergency fund is extremely important. That's the best way to hedge at this point in time. Make sure you have as much comfort, as much peace of mind in your personal finances as possible, because nobody wants to be, cashing in their investments just because, we're in a recession. And typically in a recession, markets are down. So it's a double-edged sword. Not only are you cashing in your money, you possibly taking a loss on it as well, but actually you're now exiting the market in potentially a very, very good period where you could see, you know, continual investment mean that your pound cost averaging in with better potential returns for the future. So that would be my thoughts on that, Kelvin. Yeah, I'm just saying it. Burnout is real. Take it easy. Trust me. When I finish, I'm going to sleep like a baby tonight. I'm quite tired. I'm going to sleep like a baby. I'm just going to crash out and stuff. So it should be okay. Should be good. It should be okay. I'm just looking at the feed right here. Let me just tweak something quickly. Hopefully that will come through. Okay, cool. All right, let's have a look at this. Uh, I've just got to echo what Jabai is saying here, just in return in regards to the question about pension and investing. Like I said, your company paying contributions is really, really important. And if you want to take that extra money and go and invest, if they're matching, you're saying goodbye to even um, more money from your employer and the tax relief on top of that as well. So, do look into those things first. Visual's asking, how much do you think the market will drop and when do you think prices will bottom out? No idea, mate. Can't even begin to speculate on that. I don't have a crystal ball, so I couldn't even tell you, mate. I think if you are investing in the market right now, you stay the course, you continue to do what you're doing. It's not like we don't know that this stuff happens. We are 100% fully aware that this kind of stuff happens. So you, as long as you have a plan when you've started out investing, this is a really big thing. As long as you had a plan, a lot of people don't go. A lot of people go into investing without a plan, unfortunately, and I personally think that that's a mistake to do. You need to have a plan. You have a goal. You understand how long you're investing for. You understand what risk you're willing to take, what risk you are able to take. Um, then the market correction or the market falling or bottoming out is a completely it's an irrelevant conversation. It doesn't matter because your plan would have taken into consideration the level of risk that you're willing to take, which includes this conversation about what happens if the markets fall. Um, Nobody has a crystal ball, mate. The last thing you can do is try and time when you think the bottom is going to be. You could be waiting forever. The bottom could have already been. The bottom could be coming along in 2 weeks' time. We don't know. There is no way of knowing. Yes, hindsight is a gift, but hindsight is exactly that. We know it once it's happened, and nobody is going to be able to tell you when the bottom is going to happen and if it's already happened. No one's going to be in that position. They'll be able to tell you once it's happened and we realize that it's happened, but then it's too late. So just make sure that you revisit those fundamental basics. And again, I don't talk about my course often. I think people are already coursed out when it comes to investing, but my course for investors is pretty basic. I mean, it's basic for a reason. It goes through the foundations, like the basic building blocks that you need to have in place, right? Having a goal, understanding your timeline, how long you're looking to invest for, understanding the risk that you're willing and able to take, how investments actually work, the different kind of asset classes. So you've got equities, you've got bonds, you've got property, you've got commodities, you've got gold, you've got so many things. How do they interact? What are their characteristics? All those things. How do you then think about things from a tax efficient point of view? Those are the things I cover in the base in my course for beginners. But again, it's not super advanced, but I think that a lot of people have gone into investing over the past couple of years looking for the advanced stuff, and they've completely forgotten about the basic building blocks that you essentially need. And that's what my course is there to do. It's like if you're trying to build a house, mate, you're not just gonna start on the second floor without having foundations in place. You need to have some foundations in place, and that's what my course basically does. um Someone's asking a football question related here. United and Mount. Look, I think he can. I think he could be pretty impactful as a number 8. Personally, um, why didn't we go for Moises Caicedo though? I think Caicedo is more of an impactful player. Will have more of an impact than I think Mason Mount. But if you put Mount with what he's going to be with Bruno, and then he's going to be with Casemiro, that's a pretty decent middle of the park right there. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. We'll see what happens. But isn't it a mess though? We don't know what's going on with the sale. We don't know whether they're going to sell it or not, whether they're going to back out. We don't know what's happening with De Gea, whether he's staying or going. We have no idea. We're scrambling around potentially for a keeper, and we still don't have a striker, and we don't have any money. It's pretty horrid. Especially when you consider Chelsea are doing business, Arsenal's doing business, Tottenham's doing business, Liverpool's doing business, Man City's doing business. I mean, come on. Like, what are we doing here? Like, guys, come on. It's mad. Visual just saying here, he's seen properties that are still listed at 20% of asking. Are you saying 20% over or 20% under? 20% off asking. Okay. Well, that may be reflected in the market right now. Some people will do that just to get better interest, because obviously, if you go under market value, you're going to have more people view it, and the more people you have view it, more likely the more people are going to offer. So they may be going in at minus 20% off asking price. But when you start getting the competition, potentially bidding wars takes it back up to what I don't know, market value might actually be, if not a little bit more. People still want to buy houses. We forget this. People still want to buy houses because people still need to buy houses to live in. Sharon. Um, yeah, they're just talking about pension contributions here and all this kind of stuff. And I would agree with what Sharon's saying here. I wouldn't cancel a pension contribution, especially if your employer makes a contribution, as you'd be losing free money. 100%. Well done, Sharon. Thank you. Let's have a look at what Anil's saying. Anil, okay, for a remortgage, is it better to do a product transfer with same lender on a higher rate with no solicitor and no fees than a different lender with lower rate but high fees and solicitor fees? That really depends, mate. It depends what the market is saying. So I'll give you my example, right? So my mortgage is with Halifax, and I've got some mortgage friends, and I rang Halifax and I said, "What's the best offer that you got at the moment?" And at the time, it was 4.75. That's what I've locked in at. I then spoke to my mortgage friend and said, "Look, what's for my loan to value, which is I think is about 43% loan to value. What's the best rate you can offer?" They went away, had a look, and couldn't find anything to beat 4.75%. So I did a very high level comparison and went with the cheapest one, which happened to be with my existing provider. And as you rightly counted there, there's no solicitor's fees or anything like that involved with that. In some cases, it may be better for you to go to a mortgage advisor if the rate is significantly better than what you're being offered. Then you need to do the calculation, and the mortgage advisor can help you understand this, whether by having solicitor's fees and maybe even a product fee, whether you're still saving money over the long run. But that's one of the reasons why you should definitely consider speaking to a mortgage broker just to be sure of all of the options. And there's nothing wrong with doing both. Speak to your existing provider, note down what their best rate is. They'll tell you that obviously they can't, reserve it for you unless you've made an application and stuff. But that's fine. You just need to know what the best rate is for you at this point in time, and then try and speak to someone who can hunt through the market for you for the best rate and see what comes out better. You never know. You never ever know. All right. Okay. So if I gave my mum a present of 40K for my income, does she have to pay tax on it? I spoke to an accountant and they mentioned I don't have to, but just wondering, thanks. You can gift money. You can gift money. If you're doing it from your income, there is a cap though. And when you gift money, there's something called the 7 year clock. So if anything happens to you within 7 years of that gift, the person that you gifted, well, there's going to be a tax liability which runs off. So in seven, let's I can't remember the exact numbers right now without looking it up properly. But let's just say, if you died within the first year of that 7 year clock, it may mean that you need to pay, I don't know, 20% tax. Then in year six, it may be 15%, right? But then if you get past the 7 year, there is no tax at all to pay. So an accountant should be able to advise you properly on what the gifting rules are and the 7 year clock. But there is a cap. There is definitely a cap. I can't remember what the cap is right now. There is a cap on how much you can gift out of income, because HMRC are not stupid. They know that people do this. So there is a cap on how much you can gift from your income. So I hate to say it, but I think that you may be over the limit that you can gift, having given 40K to someone from your income. You'll be over the limit. So there is a tax liability. You can't get away with this scot-free unless you live past 7 years. But your accountant should be able to give you a full breakdown of how that actually works. So you should ask them about the gifting rules, 7 years, and all that kind of stuff, and they should be able to give you the sliding scale of what tax will need to be paid if you were to pass away within 7 years. And obviously, you're not going to pay it; it'll be your mum that pays it. But it's worthwhile asking just to get the full detail. Hi Pete, fairly new subscriber here. Welcome. Great videos. May I ask what your thoughts would be on currency? Do you think it will hold as cash, USD, or GBP is better? Look, that right there um, is a pretty loaded question. And the reason why it's a loaded question is the value of the USD or the pound is heavily dependent on a number of factors. So you've got the rates by which at which the government is able to borrow money. You've got inflation that comes into that as well. So if you're asking, do I think if do you think if holding as cash, if you're trying to get me to try and give you which one would be better to hold, USD or um, the pound, I would say from a from a currency, the power of a currency, I would argue that the USD would probably be slightly better to hold than the pound. Their recession problem isn't as entrenched as ours, it doesn't seem like, and it is the reserve currency of the world. So you've got a lot of demand for the USD. So I would say if you had to pick between the two, the USD is probably the stronger one to hold. Um, the pound's not great right now, if I'm honest, and recessions and Brexit and all this stuff and inflation doesn't help with that either, and the cost of our borrowing doesn't help that either. So USD would probably be the stronger one to hold, in my opinion. Nitro T, what's up? What you saying here? Fairly actually no, sorry, 1 second. There we go. Here we are. Would you say now is a better time to invest in shared ownership as you are taking on a smaller mortgage for a first time buyer? Um, Good question. You may be taking on a smaller mortgage as a first time buyer, but you're still going to have to pay rent on the other part that is owned by your housing association. So I think shared ownership definitely has a role to play, but there are restrictions and limitations to shared ownership. For example, staircasing. They've made it a little bit easier to staircase, i.e., buy more equity in the property. So you may start off, let's say, with 50% equity, 50% owned by them. So you're paying 50% on mortgage, but you're also paying a rental payment for the 50% that they own. And if you want to go up from 50, say, to 60, they're going to have very strict criteria of things that you've got to do potentially that could limit you. And I'm thinking of someone who I speak to quite a bit from the channel here. She's currently trying to staircase, and the criteria was this, and you have to effectively meet it. Whereas if you went for things like other schemes like Help to Buy, for example, or if you went for schemes like Deposit Boost, um, they may be a little bit more pragmatic in terms of with a Help to Buy, you just got to save the money to pay it off. There is no red tape really to go through to get you to be in that position where you can, in fact, have more in ownership in the property. I mean, with the Help to Buy, what they basically do is they take a charge over the property. Once you pay that off, the charge is gone, right? You then have more equity in the property. So I would definitely have a look at other schemes and do a pros and cons list for sure. And speak to developers as well. The Deposit Boost is a scheme. It's not perfect. It really, really isn't, but it may work for you. But look at all of the schemes that you have available to you and try as much as you possibly can to kind of put pros and cons together so you can make an informed decision of which one might work best for you given your circumstances. And again, speaking to a mortgage professional who can help you understand all of the pros and cons as well is very, very important. Industry knowledge is important. Let me just say thank you here, by the way. Let me just get to this one because this is super chat, and I really do appreciate these when they come through. I don't ask for them because I know that things are tight right now, and When I look at, I watch a lot of live YouTube streams, and this happens all the time, and it doesn't happen that much on this channel. But when they do, I do want to acknowledge people because it really does go a long way. It's £10 here. People may think that it's not a lot of money, but actually, when you think about the work and the effort that goes into putting these live streams together and the time that is spent, this kind of stuff is really, really, really appreciated. So thank you so much, N. And if you do a super chat like this, you may be further down because I try and go chronologically. But if you do a super chat, I get to your question a little bit quicker because I do want to say thank you. So let's see what you're saying. Hey, Pete, is it worth getting a home buyer's survey done? Cost £400. Our mortgage advisor didn't advise on this, and we're just getting a standard one done by Nationwide Survey. I would say it depends on what you're buying, mate. I mean, look, I've heard horror stories, right? I did a video. It was probably about a month and a bit ago. There was this story that ended up on the news of a, a development in North London. These properties were like £1,000,000, 900,000, 800,000 pounds, right? And new build. And when the people take out the mortgage, obviously the lenders do the survey, tick box, and all this kind of stuff. But the property had so many issues, so much so that the report or the recommendation was for them just knock down the building altogether and rebuild. So if you think about it, these people in North London have put their heart and their soul, their deposit into these properties that they bought for 800, 900,000 pounds, not fit to live in. So when you hear stories like that, you then ask yourself, okay, would it have just been better to spend 400 quid and actually get someone who's independent to look at the property, make sure it's 100% sound, and possibly pick up things that the lender won't basically pick up? I think so. I definitely think so. And I know it is an outlay, but I think especially if you're buying like an existing building, maybe that has been standing for a long time, it might be a Victorian house. You probably definitely want to make sure that it's okay. You probably want to make sure that there isn't anything untoward that might be happening and stuff like that. Subsidence is a big thing, right? As an example. I would say 400 quid is worthwhile, but even on the new builds now, I think that they would be worthwhile. Yes, yes, it's an outlay, but if you think about it, look, you're buying a house. It's probably going to be the biggest purchase that you're going to make in your lifetime. 400 quid to make sure that you're making the right decision and there aren't any nasty surprises down the road, I think is a good investment. So yeah, I would say yes, especially if you're feeling a little bit uneasy or you have this niggling feeling, follow your gut. Follow your gut. That's one thing that I've always learned as being really, really important. Right, I'm just going back up. Let me just catch up to where I was. Where was I? Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to find where I am. There's quite a few questions and comments that have basically come in. Okay, there's a lot here. Where was I? Okay, yeah, we've just done. I did that one. Okay, cool. Right, here we are. So Jabai's asking pension versus mortgage question. Check out overpayment calculators, peeps. Overpayment versus saving for investment. Yeah, I mean, so that's just a comment relating to something else that we've already spoken about already. Let's have a look at this. Yeah, Food Dwell is here saying that the company is matching. So if your company is matching, you want to make sure that you're not saying goodbye to that. I wouldn't say, well, it's free money. Definitely don't say goodbye to that 100%. Am I against planning with or for annuity plans? Yes or no, and why? I think annuities have a good role to play when planning for retirement, but annuities have had a bad rap because the annuity rates are so poor, or have been so poor. And the thing you got to remember with an annuity is if you give £100,000 to an annuity company, they may turn around and say, okay, we'll give you £2,000 every single year until you die. You've got to then start working out at £2,000, £100,000, you need to live 50 years to get your £100,000 back. And if you die within that period of time, you've given away 100 grand, you don't get any of that money back. The way it used to get used when, from a financial planning point of view, and I've definitely seen this as an advisor, as a financial advisor, is if you were working with someone where, right, we understand that your income requirement in retirement is, say, £20,000, right? What we then do is we start to have a look at blocks. What do you already have available to you? So you may have state pension allowance, right? So you might get the full state pension that will give you £10,000, right? So now your £20,000 need has gone from 20,000 to 10,000 because 10,000 is being taken care of from your state pension. We then have a look at what other arrangements you have. Do you have workplace pensions, personal pensions, or private pensions, right? And what cash do you have within those? So let's just say you had, I don't know, 500 grand. Okay. I'm making up the numbers 500 grand in workplace pensions and private pensions. Well, that 500 grand needs to give you £10,000 that the remainder to make sure that you meet your £20,000 target. Now, what you could do, and this provides peace of mind for a lot of people, is say, okay, I'm going to take maybe 150, 200,000 of this £500,000, give it to an annuity provider, because the annuity provider might say, we'll give you 5 grand per year, every single year, guaranteed till you die. You combine that with your state pension, now you're at £15,000 guaranteed income. You only need to find £5,000 with the remaining £300,000, right? So what an annuity can allow you to do is it can allow you to be less reliant on the outcomes of the stock market or the performance of the stock market for income purposes. So it's not a question of whether they are good or bad or whether you should or should not use them. It's a case of, is it an appropriate thing for you to use based on your own planning? And you're really only going to understand what all of the options are if you actually speak to someone who can actually help you do that plan, or you have a really good understanding of, right, these are the ins and outs of annuity, these are the ins and outs of a personal pension, and you plot it yourself. But annuities have a very specific role to play in terms of income planning because they offer you a guarantee. um, some annuities will give you better rates if you have medical conditions. Some annuities will give you better rates, for example. um, that I'm done annuities for years and years and years and years and years, but there are some with guaranteed annuity rates. Some of them have guaranteed minimum pensions, GMPs. Um, some of them will give you spousal death benefit, which is typically 50% of whatever they guaranteed you will go to your spouse. So there are some really good things about annuities, but it's a question of if it's the right thing for you to use personally. So yeah. Laura's is saying here, I have a private pension with Vanguard and it shows cash available. What does this mean? It's under single payments. You may have a small cash element within your actual investment plan itself. So you may not have 100% of it invested. It may hold a little bit of cash. And what that typically does is sometimes if you've invested in S&P 500, because of the unit price, you may have to make up a certain amount to get in there. So, for example, if you had maybe 500 quid, you might need £510 to be able to get in. So you're probably holding a little bit of cash because for that reason. Yeah, Michael's saying it. Mount is a very versatile player. Yeah, and I think you know what? I think he'll link up really, really well. Even with when you start thinking about him playing with maybe like Rashford, I'd love to see how that would actually work out, and how that connection would work within the team too. I think he would do really, really well just in terms of that versatility and just being. It would definitely be a nice. mm, See, Ericsson's done great, but Ericsson's lost his legs, and I think as a substitute for Ericsson, he works very, very well. And then, when Mount's not available, Ericsson can step in because Ericsson is still awesome, but he just hasn't got the legs to run 90 minutes now. He just doesn't have those legs anymore. So I would agree with that for sure. I would definitely agree. Um, bear with me 1 second because my camera monitor's literally just died. And sometimes it just kicks out. It hasn't done anything here. That's good. Okay, cool. Let me just tweak a little something here as well. Let me tweak that again here. All right, let's have a little look at this next one. Okay, so Ivan, okay, looking to get a mortgage, but likely I'm going to rent out spare rooms in the house. There's nothing wrong. You can do that. Uh, I'd be careful with the whole mortgage deed thing because if you're buying it as a residential, it should be residential. If you're looking to like rent out rooms, you really should tell them. But then again, if you don't tell them, they're not going to know because they're not going to come and knock on your door and try and find out. And oftentimes, if you tell them, they'll say, well, you've got to pay a fee for us to give you the permission to rent out or sublet the property. Um, so you can do that. It will be your call as to whether or not you decide to tell your mortgage lender or not. Um, Read between the lines here, mate. I know people who have been stung for a couple of grand just for that permission to sublet or to change the arrangement under the mortgage because it is a legally binding contract that you're signing. But a lot of people are doing this because at the end of the day, it is about trying to maximize and sufficiently um, subsidize your mortgage payments, especially with interest rates being so high. If people have spare rooms, I can see why they want to rent their places out. Oh, cheers for this, mate. Yeah, we will try to. You know what? It's weird because we were talking about getting on a live stream together for about 2 months, and I'd love to do more collaborations with other YouTubers and stuff. But you would be very surprised at how incredibly competitive and backstabbery it can get amongst UK YouTubers, finance YouTubers, unnecessarily so. Um, and sometimes they can be very unreasonable, very, very, very unreasonable. I'm the kind of person, if someone asks me to do something, yeah, I'll jump on, no problem at all. Got no issue at all supporting, having a conversation, providing value. Some of them though will be like, well, you've got to pay me 2 grand or a grand for my time, which it's fine. I have no problem paying someone, for their time, but if I was in that position, there would be no physical way that I could actually make this channel wouldn't be sustainable. If Charlie said to me, "Well, Pete, I'm just going to be about an hour and a bit. You need to pay for my time, and it's going to be a grand." I don't make a grand on the video. There's no, if anything, how much have I made on that video from an AdSense point of view? Let me just have a look because it'll be interesting to know. Just to give you guys context. How much does that video make? Because it has been quite popular. The views have been pretty decent on it. So AdSense right now on that video so AdSense is when like there are ads that Google plays in the beginning or in the middle of the videos. The AdSense revenue on that video right now is at £41.23. So if you think about, YouTubers saying, you need to pay me a grand or two to have a chat with them, y- financially, it's not viable. It's just not viable. Um, and that's the secret behind YouTube. Charlie, we've been speaking for 2 months. More than happy to come on and spend some time. I'll do exactly the same with him. But yeah, other YouTubers aren't like that. They want to be paid for their time, and it's difficult. Really, really hard to be able to make this right here sustainable with those kind of demands. So it kind of puts you off. But I will be doing more stuff with Charlie. I want to get the Stig on as well because I've not actually met the Stig. It will be good to hear his researched based opinions of what he thinks will happen with the housing market, so on and so forth, and dig a little bit deeper into that. So watch this space. Thanks for that, Adam. Cheers. With my pension, I match the most the company will match, and then put anything over that in an ISA. This is so I don't miss any great investments that may come along between now and retirement. that's a good plan. I mean, you're maxing out the matching contributions to your pension, then you're investing the rest into an ISA. You know, it's a great approach, mate. I think you're onto a winner right there. So thank you. Yeah, well done, mate. Well done. Okay, we've covered that one already because I think there was the super chat one. Thank you very much again, N. Um, on the gifting, yes, you can gift to more than one individual. Yes, you can. So again, you need to speak to your accountant just to make sure you're aware of all the limits and how that actually works. Because it doesn't matter how many people you gift to, that 7 year clock still counts for each of the gifts that you make. Okay, someone's asking here. Question: help those who are locked in 2 3 years on a lower rate. Example: less than 2.5%. Overpay on a mortgage rate lower than current savings rates, which is 4.5% at the moment, or save an account and let it compound. Look, you can run the numbers, and the numbers will tell you one thing. Look, I've been in the game long enough to know that people often don't follow the logical thing and the most mathematically correct thing. So what you're doing there is you're looking at mortgage rate, interest rate, which one would generate better returns or put you in a better place financially based on the rate on offer. I think when you start looking at savings rates and mortgage rates, well, actually, it becomes a little bit more convoluted than that, because what you're really calculating or trying to calculate in a mortgage situation is, if you were to pay down, how much interest does it save you? That can be in the thousands of pounds. Now, when you're looking at interest rates of 4.5%, how does that compare to the thousands of pounds that you would pay, that you would save on your mortgage if you paid it off? But again, with my experience, I know that there's that logical, mathematical, these are what the numbers are saying approach. Second to that is you have this right here. What helps you sleep better at night? I have definitely seen people who have completely ignored the numbers and just goes, look, I would just feel better if I know that I paid off a chunk of my mortgage. And you cannot argue with that. You can't argue with that. That's why people will try and be very absolute in their responses to questions. And personal finance is personal for a reason. What fits me does not fit you. And so what I try and do is get people to think logically about, okay, what are the options? What are the pros and cons? But what do you want to do? What helps you sleep better at night? What would feel like the right decision for you? Because the right decision for you isn't necessarily going to be the right logical decision, and that's completely fine. And I think that's where a lot of people become stuck, because you have to try and reconcile, right, the logical part of your brain saying this is the right thing to do, but then you've got the other illogical but very emotionally charged side to you that wants to do X. And in my experience, when someone doesn't necessarily see the meeting place between the logical and the emotional decision, it's too much turmoil. Too much turmoil. Doesn't matter what happens and how logical it is. If emotionally, and that mindset piece doesn't sit well with the logic, yeah, it doesn't work. Which is why it's so important to try and get the two right. And it's never going to be a perfect marriage. It just isn't. But being aware that, okay, look, I've got this side to me that, from a irrational, emotional point of view, would rather have this, but the logical thing is this. You then need to decide, okay, which one is the loudest. And if the emotional side is the loudest, then that's where you need to go. If the logical one is the loudest, then that's where you should go, as long as you're able to make that emotional, irrational side, that mind piece, that mindset piece, sit well within the logic. And that doesn't come overnight. Like, that does take a little bit of time for people to tune into. But that's the way our minds are built. And that's why I'm so interested in, behavioral the behavioral things. And I'm actually starting to develop a couple of behavioral assessments now, which will be on my website fairly soon to help people understand why they make the decisions that they make. It's really fascinating because, yeah, logic and emotion and the way we think irrationally sometimes, i- it is irrational. It's quite irrational. Yeah, so this doesn't matter whether you've already paid tax on it. This is again where you need your accountant. You've gifted the money, so you're going to have the 7 year clock kick in. Someone has to pay tax on it, and it may not be you, but it could be your mum. Has to pay tax, so you need to speak to your accountant. You need to ask about the 7 year gifting rule, um, and how that is going to translate. Doesn't matter whether you pay tax or whether it's from your income. Of course, you pay tax on it from your income. There's still a tax liability, unfortunately. So this is the kind of stuff what I was saying, people will tell you categorically what you should do, and the decision isn't theirs. With James, with all due respect, definitely do not overpay your mortgage. It's bad advice. That's what you think. There is you don't know the nuances of the person's situation. There are worlds where they should definitely pay off the mortgage because it is the right thing to do. And in fact, there is a world where you're also right. They should definitely not do it because it is bad advice. But you're never going to know which is which until you get into the nuance of what's going on in your personal finance space, what's going on in your world, what are the factors that need to be considered to help you get to the best decision, logically or illogically, as we were talking about in terms of what's going to help you sleep best at night, what's going to help you feel as though you've made the best decision for you. Really, really important. So again, personal finance is personal for a reason because it's personal, and each of us have our own, way of seeing the world. I'm actually overpaying my mortgage. So here's an example of someone who is. I am actually overpaying my mortgage. I'm overpaying my mortgage by a large sum of money. And I'll be doing that in the next couple of weeks. So people are overpaying their mortgage. Sometimes it is the right thing for them to do. But because I'm overpaying my mortgage, I'm not going to go and tell someone not to go and overpay their mortgage, or someone should definitely overpay their mortgage. It's personal finance, personal decisions based on personal circumstances, personal scenarios. You cannot try and be absolute on don't do this because you don't know enough to be able to say that. Is it true that anything less than 50% or 60% loan to value has no or minimal impact on the interest rate? No, I mean your loan to value. The lower your loan to value, the better the rate is going to be. Um, I mean, I can't remember when I'm just trying to think back to my conversation with Halifax, and I think the 4.75 was the lowest that they had at the time, and my loan to value is about 42%. So there wasn't anything lower than that. Um, and you may find yourself in a what I'm trying to think if I've ever come across um, things that rates change all the time. So they may say, right, okay, so for 30% loan to value, we are going to naturalize or equate that rate to a 40% loan to value because you've got to think about the margin for the bank as well, right? They're there to make money. They're passing on the cost of that debt. So they may say, actually, you know what? Once you get to this point, the rate is this, but there are hundreds of providers, so it's not going to be a carte blanche. Everyone operates in the same way. Again, which is why sometimes speaking to a mortgage advisor who can look at the whole of market is a good idea because they can actually go out and look at this stuff actively and try and source the best deal for you. Um, I haven't done a mortgage in a long, long, long time, so I can't really give you an absolute definitive answer on that. Um, yeah, I'm just scanning, guys. Bear me 1 second. There's a really good conversation going on around the property and all that kind of stuff, valuation, which is great to see. Um, okay, so James put a hypothetical in here, right? So if you overpay, you're overpaying £6,000 over the year, but what happens if you lose your job? Well, what happens if you lose your job? I mean, in an ideal world, you have an emergency fund anyway. Any financial decision that you'll be making should be based on the fact that you have a an emergency fund in place as a go to. Um, that's really how you start to build security financially. This is the stuff they should be teaching us in school. Yeah, 100%. So even if you are paying off your mortgage, hopefully you're going to have a 3 to 6 month emergency fund set aside. So if you do lose your job in this example, well, you should be able to call on that. But let's just say you haven't been able to get an emergency fund and you do lose your job, like James is suggesting here. Well, you can speak to your lender, and hopefully, as long as there are no other charges on the property, you could take a payment holiday. Now, obviously, a payment holiday won't necessarily impact your um, credit score, right? But you'll have to bear in mind that it is a holiday for a period of time. So many people will say, well, is it better for you to have £6,000 left over in savings as opposed to paying it off your mortgage? Well, technically, possibly, yes, you could argue that. But how much is £6,000 going to cover you for? If it covers you for 3 months or even 6 months, that's good. So there are pros and cons here. Really, again, it depends on your personal circumstances and where you essentially are. The one thing that you also have to remember here is, you've paid off £6,000 of your mortgage, but how much has that saved you in interest as well? And that's the bigger piece that a lot of people often look at and means the most to a lot of people when they talk about overpaying the mortgage. It isn't the fact that you're overpaying or paying off £6,000 on your mortgage. It's the thousands upon £1,000 in interest that it's going to save you in the long run, therefore helping you pay off your mortgage early. The reality is that anyone can lose their job at any given time. And if you're really, really smart about it, what you should have is you should have some income protection insurance. Because if you do lose your job, guess what? Income protection insurance is going to pay out what, 85% of your monthly salary until you get a new job, or in perpetuity until you retire. Really, that's the smart thing to do. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't look at income protection insurance because they think it's a waste of money. When the reality is that, if you look back to COVID, there are people who got made redundant from COVID who claimed their insurance policy and had that thing pay out 85% of their salary for the whole time that we we're in lockdown. I know someone who has been claiming on their the payout on their insurance policy for the last 10 years. They had an accident, not able to work, physically can't work actually, and the insurance policy is just paying out their income. So if you really wanted to be smart, like you really wanted to lock yourself down and tighten the buttons and just make sure that from a financial point of view you got all the bases covered, you would just have an income protection insurance policy in place. That's supreme peace of mind. Um, Water. Just wondering, is the eToro ISA pretty much the Moneyfarm ISA, seeing as they launched the eToro ISA with Moneyfarm? I don't know, mate. I've not had a look at it. Um, but if it is a Moneyfarm ISA, it probably will be identically the same. They may have a nuance on it for the purpose of just maybe plugging into what eToro needs them to do. But I wouldn't be surprised if it is the same thing. But I haven't had a look at it, so I couldn't tell you if I'm completely honest. Right, I'm just scanning. I'm also looking at time as well because we're at an hour and four. Ooh, there's a lot. There's a lot here. Joanna, thank you, mate. Really do appreciate you. Thank you so much. Like I said, doesn't happen often. So, for me at the moment, so the two super chats that have come in now have basically meant that I've earned 20. Well, by the time YouTube takes their own cut, probably be about maybe 13 quid roughly. But like I said, on the other video, to get £41 on AdSense on the video with Charlie, that's with 3,236 views. My typical run rate for lives when I do them like this, which is why I ask people to smash the like button, um, is around about 1,000 views roughly. So if I look back over the last live that I did that got maybe like 1,000 views or so, the what did I get in terms of AdSense on that video? £11 roughly. So 1,115 views, I think that one got. So both you and N have basically this evening basically ensured that this video will definitely do more than that video in revenue altogether. So I really do appreciate it. Thank you very, very much. All right, I'm just going to scan and see. There are quite a lot of questions that I'm probably not going to be able to get to. Yeah, I'm just scanning at the moment to see if there's anything that I could just pick up that's maybe a little bit pertinent that sits out to me. Um, Edna's on here. How you doing? So many amazing comments on here. The one thing that I love here is the fact that there's like a little background conversation going on amongst everyone as well. People interacting and talking, and that's the beauty of these types of things. It's why I enjoy doing lives more than just like planning a video, shooting a video, editing a video, then putting it out there, because I don't see the interaction as much. Whereas just watching you guys, talk about, the logical and the emotional side of things, and talking to each other about, what house and all this kind of stuff and savings accounts, that for me, this is really, really enjoyable. It's why I've been more inclined to do live videos than recorded videos recently, because I think this is way more enjoyable for me. It is a little bit less work as well. I still have to prepare. I have to provide all the assets and all this kind of stuff here, but it's really, really nice seeing that the conversation is is buoyant in the comment section here. And apologies, but I'm not going to be able to get to all of these questions, because yeah, like I said, I'm tired, I'm jet lagged, and we are now a 8:30, and the plan was to get an early night tonight. But I do appreciate every single one of you for obviously, putting your questions in and being part of this conversation this evening. I will do more of these. I used to do these every single Sunday. Um, and if there is a need, if there is, this demand for people wanting to come on and ask questions and they need answers, I will definitely dedicate, about an hour or so every Sunday or so to be able to do that. Again, I have to think about time versus is it worth it with everything else that I've got going on. So yeah, I really do appreciate, and James, thank you as well. Super chat there. Um, Thank you very, very much. Oh, you're saying here already bought and listened to your book and on Audible. It was inspirational. Appreciate the chat. Oh, thank you, mate. Really, thank you very, very much. And yeah, the book. I keep forgetting that the book is out. To be honest, it's still kind of I had a message from a friend of mine who's actually a financial advisor, and in the book, if you've read it, the top part of the book, I've spoken a little bit tonight about the logical side and the emotional side of our brain, and how sometimes in our finances those two things don't meet, and when they don't meet, it can feel like it's a fight. That's where you get this internal conflict. You can't make a decision. It's really, really hard to make a decision. So in the top half of the book, what I do is I take people through the wheel of life, the finance wheel, and then I go on a timeline. And the whole idea behind that is to get a better understanding of what that emotional side of our brain is trying to tell us, in terms of if we can aim it at something, give it purpose, give it direction, and we can mentally articulate, mentally document what that is, sometimes some of the logical decisions that we need to make become a lot easier because from a emotional, behavioral, mindset point of view, we've made a clear statement of why we want to do something. The logic becomes a lot easier that way. And so it's always nice to hear this feedback. And my friend Sam, he messaged me last week and it actually made my day because he's a financial advisor. And he goes, he had never come across the Wheel of Life. And just the way I positioned it in the book was a game changer for him. And he's a financial advisor. And I'm like, when I was writing the book, I was thinking, is this stuff too basic? People already know this, right? But I realized a lot of people don't, not even sometimes financial advisors don't even know this stuff. So it's always nice receiving this kind of feedback about the book. And look, if you haven't already picked it up, the QR code, which is, if I can get this right here, that QR code will take you to Amazon. You can pick up the book. It is a physical book. It's an audio book, and it's also available on Kindle as well. It's called The Money Basics: How to Become Your Own Financial Hero. And it's not about being a millionaire, trillionaire. It's about understanding and putting those building blocks in place so that you have enough money. And this could be 2,000, 3,000, 20,000, 40,000. It could be 100. It could be $1 million for some people. But you feel as though you have enough money that provides you financial security. And I share a lot of my own story in the book, my background, and where I am now is a world away from where I was back then in a lot of the stuff that I describe in that book. So it's not just a finance book. There's a lot of my own mistakes, my own lessons in there. And I share it because I want it to inspire people, because it's very easy to think, I'm in this situation, there is no way out. And I'm here to tell you, trust me, there is. It's just going to take a little bit of work, and it is possible for you to get there. But now I'm in a position where I feel very, very fortunate, because at the end of the day, I still have to work extremely hard. But from a financial point of view, I don't really have that many worries. I earn well, but I'm also very, very, very meticulous in terms of keeping my expenditure down, making sure that I don't have any debt. And that's taken me years to be able to get there. But you can also get there too. And it's about understanding the principles that you need to put in place that I explain in the book in order to make all of that happen. So guys, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you again for all of the super chats. James, Joanna, and N, really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. It is Sunday, it's Monday tomorrow morning. I have a podcast episode going out tomorrow morning, which will be really, really good. And I'll be available during the week as well with live videos, that kind of stuff, just to kind of hopefully provide a little bit more value through the day. But anyway, guys, whatever you do this evening, have a good one.
Yeah, surprise, a little different than you used to. Yeah. Dropping these bars on YouTube, knowledge I introduce you. Yeah. We chasing this money like it's the prize, it's the voodoo. Fugazi, fugazi, it's just a lie we buying into. We need some cars on deck. Get the rollies, get the Moe, all the Mars on deck. We got the traders, got the picture with the Bentley in Dubai. Are you dripping in designer, looking fly? On the bombardier, sipping on the wine. Broke man, we broke. Where's the fun in being broke? Stocks and bonds get you yo. That's what I'm teaching these folks. I see that smoke, see them choke. Getting coke. While I'm researching these stocks, buying coke. 20 months on the channel, million people taking note. I got a warrant for Buffet. I'm coming for his vote.